Welcome back to Make Math Happen. Did you miss me? I know it's been a couple of weeks since you've heard my voice. Honestly, I've been deep in the trenches, balancing the weight of leadership, coaching, and just the sheer load of everything that comes with this role. I thought instead of pretending like I've had it all figured out, I'm going to bring you the real story, some of my real thoughts and reflections of what's been taking place, because that's really where the growth lives. So, first thing up, one thing that I am really proud of is the headway my team has made with regard to planning. For the first time this past week, every single math and science teacher submitted their lesson plans on time. That's a big deal, y'all. But we're not stopping there. The next phase is the teachbacks. This is where teachers will model parts of lessons, reflect, get feedback, and then remodel. It's about more than compliance. It's about sharpening practice so every student has a shot at success. Planning isn't the finish line. Our execution is, okay? And I already know that when we start to share this with teachers, there are going to be some grunts in the room. There's going to be some frustration, some annoyance. But I feel like the planning was just the first step. Now, when we get up and we start practicing what we're going to say, when we start fine tuning the words that are going to come out of our mouths so that we can be clear for students, so that we can be concise for students, the teachers they're going to end up seeing the benefit of it all. They're going to see it. Too often, we buck at the system and complain about planning because it feels like control. Well, I'm here to confirm you, friend, or affirm you. It is, but it's not the type of control that you have in mind. Planning is your control over the learning experience that you provide to students. It's knowing that you fully prepared to give them what they need, to ask the questions that make them think, and to engage them so they leave your class stronger, smarter, and more critical every single day. The outcomes at the end of the year are the sum of our daily actions. So when you read that email about your plans being due, don't roll your eyes, friend. Challenge yourself to take it as a reminder of your power, the power to positively impact students' lives. And this is something we can't take lightly, okay? When you think about the fact that the kids that sit in your classroom every single day will one day grow up, and the things that we're teaching them are going to have an impact on how they show up as an adult. And I know sometimes we're like, well, that's not all on me. You got to look at their parents or you got to look at their environment. We are a part of their environment. They spend 8 hours with us every day in the school building. Now, although that might not be 8 hours in your class, it's still 8 hours in a school building that you're a part of, right? So if we've really tightened the culture within our buildings, it shouldn't matter whether they're in Miss Boone's class or Miss King's class. They should still get that same level of rigor. They should still get that same level of support. They should get that same level of high quality instruction, no matter the classroom. So again, when we think about blaming students' environments, the school is one of them. And we have to take accountability for the structure of that environment. Okay. So the next piece that I want to talk about is classroom management. Okay. This episode goes live on September 28th, 2025. And I'm going to be real with you. Some of the classrooms are chaotic. And I'm going to own some part of that. Okay. Because at the start of the year, I wanted to give teachers space and autonomy. However, last March, when I found out that I would be going into this role, I had already laid out a plan, honey. I had a plan from A to Z. But after talking to colleagues, they were like, this is a lot. Teachers are going to buck back at this. Teachers are not going to be open because it's so much stuff that you have in here. Well, one of the things that I had was that when we go over the procedures and the routines that we want to be present in our classroom, I want us to get up and practice it. Like, I want us to do what it is that we expect our kids to do. And I knew that teachers would probably look at me like I'm not a kid, right? Like I'm not a kid, I'm an adult. I should be expected or respected to be able to do what it is that teachers do without having to be micromanaged in this way. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, you're right. So again, I wanted to give them space and I wanted to give them autonomy. I didn't want to overwhelm them, especially with me being new and some of them being new. But in skipping the practice of procedures, we miss an opportunity to perfect. So it doesn't matter, how we slice it, right? You can look at something as being beneath you, but when that something improves your practice, we got to give respect where it's due, right? So when I started out teaching, My mom told me I needed to spend the first 10 days of school teaching and reteaching the processes and procedures to my kids. I heard her, y'all, but I didn't initially listen to her. Now, fortunately, I never had major management issues in my classroom. So glad for that. But I can recall pockets of time where frustration has set in, where there were days where I was calling my mom and I was like, "Ma, come get me, okay? Because yeah, this ain't for me." Or just being upset about a reality that I had created, okay? And it was usually when I had either failed to teach an expectation clearly or I wasn't consistent, right? So let's say the expectation was you don't move out of your seat unless you are given permission, okay? But let's say Jose gets up out of his seat to go sharpen his pencil and I let it slide because in that moment I'm not really doing anything. That letting it slide, I was beginning to create the habit of not following the expectation that I had written on anchor chart paper and put up in my classroom only for me to not follow it. A lot of times we are blaming kids for their behavior, but neglect to take accountability for our role in it. Okay. So, one thing that I know about me is I'm a mom with very high expectations. My son can tell you that. I like to control the controllables and protect my mental health. I do not like to feel overwhelmed. So, I structured my classroom with care, especially after having those experiences of frustration. I structured my classroom with care. I treated kids the way I'd want someone to treat mine, and I put systems in place to protect everyone's learning time. If students keep getting out their seats during instruction and I didn't teach them the expectation or worse, I kept letting it slide, then I'm the one that created the habit. The structure that I've been talking about for episodes now frees you. Okay. It frees you. It's not a micromanagement for people to ask you about what structures you have in place. How are you going to teach this? Right. We see the future. Like we already know what it is if these structures are not in place. So by taking the time to set those things out and really deeply think about what it's going to look like, you free yourself up from that stress. So structure frees you, consistency sustains you. That's why we're heading into a reset within my building with a few non-negotiables. And it's going to take everybody's commitment to get us back on track. We need everybody, all hands on deck. Okay. We had a walkthrough a few weeks ago, and one of the things that they were looking for was well-managed environment. And there are a certain number of indicators that are within that section of the walkthrough survey. And our overall score was 78%. So I interpret that as of the classrooms that they went in, 78% of those classrooms or 78% of those success criteria were evident in those classrooms, right? That's how I interpret that. Well, unfortunately, I don't think that that is actually the case. I do believe that there are some classrooms that have some very strong management routines in place, but the majority of our classrooms, there's a little bit of work that can be done, and I can tell because a lot of my teachers are stressed to the max. They are stressed. So those results cause me to wonder what impact does 2 or 3 adults, for many of the students, strangers, being in a classroom have on students' behavior? And I would say it probably has a lot. So as we are, going into these classrooms and we're rating how things are going, I think we sometimes have to account for a margin of error just because the environment with you in here, with us in here, is a different environment from what the students are used to. So it's going to result in possibly some different behaviors, some more positive behaviors. Now, obviously, there's some things that you just can't fake. Like you can't fake having a routine for talking to each other, right? For student discourse. You can't fake having a routine for getting materials. You can't fake routines for transitioning. Those things you can't fake. But there are some other things like, the chatting on the side, the being disrespectful. There are some other routines that although we're not faking, we just might not do it as much. I'm not going to do it right now, right? So again, just sharing that experience because this is my episode to be real. This is my episode to be reflective of my reality right now. And also just thinking out loud about some of the systems that we have in place that may have some cracks in it. Okay, may have some cracks in it. So, all right, let me get back on track. All right, so first, I talked to you guys about the planning and the progress and how I'm excited because teachers were able to get those lesson plans in by Friday at 8 a.m., which gave me the opportunity to start reviewing them at 12 and have them completed, the review completed before I went home. Y'all, you don't understand how much joy that brought me. 2 weeks prior, I was up on Saturday morning at 11:45 a.m. sending emails to teachers saying, please check your lesson plans because I've dropped notes in there and I need for you to review those notes before you go back in there and teach those kids on Monday morning. One of my math teachers was like, why were you up on Saturday morning doing that? Because I had to, right? I had to. Like, I take teaching, I take instruction, I take high quality instruction very seriously. And to me, the first part of that is the plan. So I need for us to have a strong plan in place, so that I feel comfortable about what students are going to experience. Okay. And just because it's on a plan doesn't mean that it's going to happen, but at least I know that there is a plan in place and the plan is positive, the plan is productive. Okay. So that was the first thing I talked to you guys about. The next thing that I talked to you guys about was the classroom management and how we're about to go through a whole reset. And we got some non-negotiables. We got some things that we're going to be asking teachers to do as a team. Because again, when we reflect on a student's environment that is impacting their behavior, when it's impacting who they are, we have to consider the school as a part of that environment because it is, right? It is. They're spending so many hours there a day. And we can't put the onus of the positive things that are happening on the school or the negative things that are happening in the school. We can't put that on one person or one team. Everybody is responsible for that, right? So if really good teaching is happening in one class, it should be happening in all of them. Okay. All right. So the last thing that I want to talk to you guys about today is the weight of the word. If I'm honest, which I'm always honest in this space because it's my space. And why should I have to lie in my space, right? The weight of it all has me reflecting. Reflection forces us to zoom out and look at all contributing factors. When I come across posts online of people speaking negatively about their schools, about leadership, I always wonder, what role did they play? Because I know that we live in an era where victim blaming is a buzzword and people are quick to accuse you of doing such a thing. But let's be real, the victim isn't always the victim. The people making these videos talking about what somebody is doing to them sometimes is doing something to somebody else, okay? Or they may be doing it to the person that they're speaking about in the first place. So I see teachers complaining, right, about not having enough planning time. So then my next question, my thought, my wondering is, have you communicated that concern directly to your instructional leadership team? And when you do have time, are you actually planning? Or are you choosing not to and then blaming admin? Because what I've seen is admin requires the teachers to meet, and during that meeting time, the planning is supposed to take place. But for people who want to be rebellious or who are saying, well, I can't work in this environment, so are just saying, I'm not even going to try, right? I'm not even going to build my capacity to do work in this environment. I'm just not going to do it. But then leave the meeting and say you don't have time to do your work. You don't have time to plan. Again, I've seen firsthand where people will huddle to complain, okay? Or spending an insane amount of time finding things they've lost because they're not organized, or they're wasting time doing small things that won't progress them. And I want you guys to reflect. When you hear me talking about blaming, I want you to reflect on, am I the person that's wasting a lot of my time because I'm huddling, complaining about the time that I don't have? Am I one of the people who is wasting time looking for things and papers that I should have organized somewhere in a binder? And then that's what's really using up my time? I want you to think about those things. I also want to share with you the big rock, little rock kind of mindset. Okay. So I learned this in one of my coaching academies. You can probably Google it if you want to see a video about it. But I want you to think about your time and your energy like a jar. The big rocks are your true priorities, the tasks and commitments that move the needle for your students, your teams, and your own growth. The little rocks are the smaller, less critical tasks that can easily fill up space if you let them. So that huddling to complain about not having time, that's a little rock. It's not even, that's not even a critical task at all, but it's filling up your time. It's taking your energy. Okay. So if you, again, think about that jar as your time and your energy, if you start by pouring in all those little rocks, those huddles, those cute worksheets that you're creating from scratch when there's already resources that have been approved by your district, when you start pulling in those tasks, those little rocks, you leave very little room for the big rocks, the rocks that really matter. Okay. And that's when you start to feel like you don't have time. I don't have energy. I can't do this. But if you start to place the big rocks first, those key actions that are tied to instruction, relationships, and results, then the smaller tasks will naturally settle around them. But we have to take care of the big rocks first. And I know for many of us, the challenge is going to be getting clear on what our big rocks are and then disciplining yourself to protect that space. Otherwise, you risk being busy all day, all week, but you never are productive. So I want you to do me a favor. The next time that you want to blame admin, you want to blame another teacher, you want to blame students, you want to blame anybody, okay? And by the way, I am not admin. No admin has sent me up here to talk about them today. This is just something that's on my heart because I work with some awesome admin. But I do want you to consider our educational landscape. The reality is too many schools are underperforming. COVID, something that people love to bring up when we have this conversation, definitely set us back. But let's not pretend schools weren't struggling long before then. Teaching is a hard job. People think it's cute outfits. They think it's decorated classrooms. They think it's viral TikToks. But that's not teaching. Teaching is making the inaccessible accessible. Teaching is opening doors. Teaching is preparing the future. Teaching is providing space for the aha. Teaching is hard work, and you have to be willing to sow if you want to reap. Instead of blaming kids for what they can't do, how about observe, plan, problem solve with your team and help them learn to do it? Let's stop making negativity go viral online as people complain about kids and administration and school, and let's start making inquiry and reflection viral, okay? The next time somebody posts a video complaining about somebody, complaining about something, I want you to ask them, well, what role did you play? The next time that you feel like complaining about somebody or complaining about something, saying a child can't do this, a child can't do that, admin isn't letting me do this, I want you to ask yourself, what role am I playing in my current situation? Too many people are riding the waves that aren't meant for them. And in doing so, you dilute the power and the impact. If you know you aren't doing the work, stop blaming others. Okay? Let's stop blaming others. And I know that today's episode is heavy, but this is what's on my mind. And it is my hope that you listen with a reflective ear, not a deflective one. I hope that you don't or haven't cut this off the moment that you heard something that you don't agree with. Because the reality is there's a lot of things going on in life right now that people don't agree with. But that is not a reason to ball up. That is not a reason to retreat. That is not a reason to disengage. Sometimes you need to sit around and hear, because in that could be the tipping point for you. In that could be what you need to show up a little stronger, to show up a little bit more productive, a little bit more efficient, right? Yeah. The last thing I'm going to leave you guys with is my educational legacy will be that she did the best she could for children, her own included. And it will be the truth because there will be receipts. There are receipts. So my question to you is, what will your educational legacy be? What will people remember you for in this space? This space. How will you impact children's lives? Will you be the positive memory a child carries or the negative one they write a song about? So yeah, think about it and talk to somebody about it. Share your response to this question with a colleague, with a friend. Until next time, keep reflecting, keep pushing, and keep making math happen.